Your choice of chair is no accident. The very place where you rest your body, where you allow your spine to lean and your weight to settle, reveals more than you might imagine. It is not only a preference for comfort or aesthetic, but a silent dialogue between your conscious self and the depths of your unconscious. You may think you simply prefer the softness of cushions or the rigidity of a wooden frame, but beneath that choice lies the language of your archetypes, your forgotten dreams, and the shape of your soul's longing. Every chair is an invitation to inhabit a certain posture of the mind. And in the way you respond to that invitation, you reveal who you are far more than you dare to say aloud. Imagine for a moment the ancient throne of a king or queen. It is not merely a seat, but a symbol of power, command, and divine right. Its height, its adornments, its weight, these were not designed by accident, but crafted to reflect the archetype of sovereignty. When you choose a chair, even a simple one, you are subconsciously aligning with certain energies. Some people choose a chair that almost swallows them whole, as though they wish to retreat into the womb of safety, to vanish into softness and avoid the sharp edges of reality. Others choose chairs that are stark and rigid, as if they need to feel every contour of their own discomfort. A reminder that they must remain awake, alert, and in control. Which one are you? And what does that say about the shadows you refuse to face? I have spent my life studying the whispers of the unconscious, the way symbols speak through the smallest acts of our daily lives. The chair is a humble symbol, but it is also profound. It is where you choose to become still. Stillness is never neutral. In stillness, your psyche either wrestles with the tensions you have avoided or collapses into the illusions you prefer. Look at your favorite chair at home, the one you always gravitate towards. What color is it? Is it upright, as if encouraging discipline and clarity, or is it low and reclined, pulling you into the dreamlike state of reverie? You might think, what difference does it make? But I tell you this, your environment is a mirror. The objects you surround yourself with are externalized fragments of your psyche. They are not random. They are your unspoken autobiography. Think of the old wooden chair that creaks with every movement. Some might find it irritating, but for another, the creak is like a voice, an echo of time, a memory of generations past. That person, without knowing, has chosen not just a seat, but the connection to something ancestral. For the soul that feels lost in the modern world, such a chair is a grounding presence, a way to remember who they are. And then there are those who seek the modern, the sleek, the stainless steel frames and the unyielding lines. They are often souls who long to be untouched by the messiness of life, who seek a purity that is often sterile, who fear the irregularity of emotion and chaos. Is that not revealing? Do you see how even something as ordinary as a chair can betray the direction of your inner life? The unconscious is always speaking, but it rarely speaks in words. It speaks in images, symbols, and preferences that we mistake for just taste. You are not merely choosing furniture, you are declaring without realizing it. your relationship to comfort, to authority, to rest, and even to suffering. A chair that is too soft may encourage a subtle surrender, a giving up of vigilance, and for someone who is already prone to escapism, that choice becomes a quiet surrender to inertia. A chair that is too hard can be chosen by someone who does not allow themselves softness in life, who fears that comfort will make them weak, who feels that they must always be prepared for the next demand life will place upon them. What does your chair say about you? And perhaps a deeper question, what kind of life does it keep you in? Let me tell you a story. A man once came to see me, troubled by recurring dreams. In his dreams, he was always searching for a seat, but could never find one. He would walk through long corridors, past countless doors, and every time he found a chair, it would vanish as soon as he reached for it. He did not understand what this meant. Yet, when he described his home, I noticed something peculiar. He had no comfortable place to sit. His apartment was filled with sharp angles, stools, benches, and surfaces that seemed more like tools than places of rest. He admitted that he never sat still for long. He was always moving, working, doing. He feared stillness because it meant being alone with his own thoughts. The dream then was a cry from his soul. You have nowhere to rest within yourself. When he finally bought a chair that he could sink into, when he allowed himself to rest, the dream ceased. It was as if his unconscious sighed in relief, saying, "Finally, you have heard me." You see, the chair is not just an object. It is an archetypal image of the throne, the lap, the altar, and the resting place. It is where the king and the child both sit. It is where the priest hears confessions and where the old storyteller shares wisdom by the fire. When you choose a chair, you are unconsciously choosing which of these archetypes you align with. Do you see yourself as the king, needing a throne that commands attention? Or do you see yourself as the humble listener, choosing a seat that disappears beneath you so you may disappear into the background? Neither is right or wrong, but both reveal truths about the dance between your ego and your deeper self. In every home I have visited, I have seen how chairs create invisible hierarchies. In some living rooms, there is always the father's chair or the mother's spot, and everyone knows not to take it. Children grow up watching these subtle rituals, understanding that the chair is not just a seat, but a place of authority and energy. Even in your own relationships, you might notice how people gravitate towards certain seats, as if they can feel the residue of the energy that lingers there. If you are sensitive, you can feel the difference between sitting in your own chair and sitting in someone else's. It is as though each chair remembers the body that rested there, the posture of its spirit, and it holds that memory like an imprint. What does your chair hold of you? There is a part of you that knows this already. Why else do you feel uneasy? When someone takes your usual spot, you tell yourself it's irrational. But deep down, you feel that they have sat in a place that carries your silent story. The unconscious is territorial, but not in a crude sense. It is territorial in that it marks the spaces where we have invested pieces of our identity. Your chair is not merely wood or fabric. It is a small temple of your presence. Over time, it absorbs your moods, your thoughts, your sighs. When you return to it, you feel at home, not just in your body, but in your being. There is a mystery in the way you settle into a chair. When you sit, you unconsciously declare the state of your inner kingdom. Some sit with their backs arched, ready to leap into action, never truly letting go, as though life is a constant battle, demanding their vigilance. Others melt into the cushions, surrendering every ounce of tension as if they long to return to the soft, unformed state of infancy. Both postures tell stories, and both are shaped by the hidden forces of your psyche. I have often said that what you do not bring to consciousness will return to you as fate. The chair is a perfect metaphor for this. It reveals how you carry the weight of your life. Are you resting, or are you merely pausing before the next strike of the whip? The act of sitting is itself symbolic. To sit is to pause the outer journey and allow the inner journey to emerge. It is to face oneself, even if only for a moment. Those who fear what lies within cannot sit without fidgeting, cannot sink into stillness without an itch to stand up again. The chair then becomes an uncomfortable reminder of all that they do not want to see. It is no accident that in ancient rituals of initiation or confession, the initiate is made to sit and face the elder. The chair becomes a crucible, a place where the truth that has been avoided comes to light. Have you ever noticed how hard it is for some people to sit without distractions, to sit and simply be? That difficulty is not about the body, but about the soul, about the tension of meeting oneself. If you pay close attention, you will begin to notice that every chair speaks a different language. The high-backed chair with armrests demands a certain dignity. It invites you to take up space, to command attention. The low, soft chair encourages introspection, retreat, and a return to the interior world. The rocking chair, gently swaying, speaks of time passing, of childhood lullabies, of elders watching the sunset with quiet acceptance. When you gravitate toward a particular kind of chair, you are answering a call from your own unconscious. You may not hear it as words, but it is there, a whisper saying, this is how you want to exist in the world. At least for now. I once met a woman who always sat on the floor, even when chairs were available. She said she felt more connected to the earth that way. But as we spoke, I realized there was more to it. For her, chairs represented hierarchy, authority, and roles she had grown to resent. Her childhood was filled with moments of standing before adults who sat on thrones of judgment, making her feel small and powerless. By choosing the floor, she was unconsciously rejecting that dynamic, refusing to place herself in the posture of subservience. Her choice of no chair was itself a symbolic declaration. She would not participate in the structures that once wounded her. This is how deeply our choices, even the simplest ones, are tied to our inner story. You may think of your chair as an extension of your personal boundaries, the way you position it in a room, the way you tilt it toward or away from others, speaks of how you allow or resist connection in a gathering. Notice who claims the corner seat, the one slightly removed from the center of conversation. That person, whether they realize it or not, is creating a buffer, protecting their psyche from being fully exposed. Others choose a seat in the middle, not just for attention, but because they need to feel part of the living pulse of interaction. The chair is a mediator between your inner solitude and the outer world. It is the bridge on which the ego and the soul meet, often in quiet tension. The very shape of a chair can mirror the archetypes within you. The throne speaks to the ruler archetype, the part of you that seeks mastery, structure and control. The hammock or lounge chair awakens the lover archetype, longing for pleasure, surrender and indulgence. The simple wooden stool calls forth the sage, stripped of all excess, content with simplicity and clarity. What do you reach for when no one is watching? That choice is a conversation with your inner archetypes, with the hidden roles you play when the masks of the day have fallen away. I have often observed how couples interact with chairs. In many homes, there is a silent choreography of seating, a pattern that repeats itself like a ritual. One partner might always take the firmer chair, the one with a view of the doorway, while the other takes the softer seat by the window. This is not merely habit, it is the psyche's way of balancing opposites, masculine and feminine energies, protector and nurturer, observer and dreamer. Over time, these chairs become more than furniture. They become the symbolic thrones of the relationship's dynamic. If one day they switch seats, something subtle shifts, as if the archetypal dance has momentarily reversed. Pay attention to these small things. They tell you far more about a relationship than the words exchanged over dinner. The unconscious love symbols, it thrives on them, weaving them into every choice we make. When you choose a chair in a public place, a cafe, a waiting room, you are unconsciously revealing your current psychological state. Do you sit with your back against the wall, facing the door, as if you must always be aware of potential threats? This is a warrior archetype at work, the vigilant part of your psyche that does not rest easily. Or do you choose a seat with your back to the room, trusting that you are safe, desiring instead to lose yourself in your thoughts? This is the dreamer, the mystic, the one who values inner visions over external surveillance. Even something as trivial as sitting on the edge of a chair versus sinking fully into it reveals how much you allow yourself to occupy your own life. Let us go deeper still. The chair is also a threshold. It is the place where the body moves from motion to stillness, from doing to being. How you cross that threshold is a mirror of how you transition through the cycles of life. Some collapse into a chair, exhausted, as though life has beaten them down, and the chair becomes a refuge of defeat. Others lower themselves with care, with presence, as though acknowledging that even this simple act is sacred. I tell you, there is no small act in the eyes of the unconscious. Every gesture is an expression of your relationship with life, and sitting is no exception. When you sit, do you do so consciously, as if taking a seat at the table of your own soul, or do you simply fall into it, unaware that even this can be an act of meaning, I recall a dream told to me by a man who saw an endless hall of chairs, each one empty, waiting. He walked among them, feeling that each chair had a different energy, a different story. Some were grand and imposing, others were humble and nearly invisible. At the end of the hall, he saw one chair that seemed to glow with a light that was not of this world. When he approached, he felt a mixture of awe and terror, as though this chair represented the seat of his true self, the place where his destiny awaited him if only he had the courage to sit. He woke from the dream trembling, and he knew, without fully understanding why, that he had been shown the throne of his own being. Such is the power of the chair as a symbol. It is not just where you sit, it is where you decide who you are. Your daily life is filled with these silent symbols. You pass them by, unaware, but they watch you. The chair you avoid sitting in because it feels too formal is often the very energy you resist in yourself. Perhaps you avoid the chair of authority because you fear the responsibility that comes with your own power. Perhaps you avoid the soft chair because you cannot yet allow yourself to feel safe. The chairs in your life form a constellation of choices, each reflecting your inner landscape, your fears, your desire, your unspoken narratives. Do not underestimate this. The unconscious does not waste energy. It does not bother with trivialities. If it draws your attention to something as mundane as a chair, it is because that object carries meaning for you, whether you like it or not. To become conscious is to begin seeing these meanings, to ask yourself not which chair is most comfortable, but which chair speaks to my soul right now. Which chair challenges me, comforts me, confronts me? The answer to that question can reveal more than hours of shallow introspection. The unconscious world does not differentiate between great and small, between throne and kitchen stool. It weaves meaning through all things, and each object becomes a stage upon which the psyche reveals itself. When you take a seat, you enact a ritual. You might believe you are simply resting, but in truth, you are stepping into an archetypal role. The chair you choose is a reflection of the role you unconsciously wish to embody. This is why, when you sit in a grand, eye-backed chair, you may feel yourself straighten, as if something within you rises to meet the image of authority that the chair projects. Likewise, when you sit in a low, unstructured seat, your body may fold inward, your thoughts may soften, and you may slip into a childlike state of receptivity. The chair does not simply hold you, it shapes you. Consider the ancient councils and courts where the most powerful person in the room sat upon a raised throne, while all others sat lower or stood. This spatial hierarchy is not mere vanity. It is a psychic language that tells the unconscious who is in command. Even now, in the simplest of homes, this language persists. There is always a seat that is yours, the one that feels correct, where you can settle fully, as if the chair remembers you. If someone else sits there, you feel displaced, as though part of your soul has been occupied by another. This instinct arises because the chair has become an extension of your psychic territory. It is not just about habit, it is about energy. The unconscious marks its chosen places like a dreamer marking the landscape of the night. I have often watched people as they enter a room full of empty chairs. Their choice is almost never random. One person scans the room and picks the farthest corner, needing space, seeking the archetype of the observer, who does not wish to be drawn into the center. Another strides confidently to the middle seat, claiming the space of the leader or the performer, someone who thrives on being seen. A third hesitates, hovering, unable to decide, betraying a deep inner conflict about where they belong. In these moments, the psyche reveals itself in all its vulnerability. Your chair, your posture, your silence, they all speak before you utter a single word. To choose a chair is to choose an attitude toward life. A rigid, upright seat may invite you to face the world with discipline, but it may also prevent you from fully surrendering to your own depths. A chair that is too soft may cradle you in such comfort that you lose your edge, allowing the outer world to blur as you sink deeper into the unconscious. Neither is inherently good or bad. What matters is whether your choice is conscious. Do you sit where you sit because it nourishes you, or because it is the seat that hides your fears? This is the question few dare to ask. Imagine for a moment a dream in which all chairs are missing. There is nowhere to sit, nowhere to rest, nowhere to anchor yourself. This dream often comes to those who feel rootless, who have lost their sense of place in the world. The lack of a chair is not about furniture. It is about the absence of inner grounding. The psyche is saying, you have nowhere to land. You are drifting. Conversely, a dream where you cannot rise from a chair may reveal the opposite problem, being stuck in a place of stagnation, unable to move forward, held captive by the very comforts or structures you have built. Do you see? The chair is both a gift and a warning. It can offer support, but it can also become a prison if you remain in it too long. Let us not forget that the chair, like all symbols, has a shadow. Its shadow is a temptation to remain seated when life calls you to stand. Many people sit in chairs that are too small for their spirit, but they never rise because the seat has become familiar. Even if it no longer serves them, they mistake familiarity for safety, and safety for truth. How many of you are sitting in lives that feel like ill-fitting chairs? You stay because the discomfort is known, and the unknown is terrifying. But I tell you this, the soul does not grow by sitting in the same chair forever. Sometimes you must rise and walk away, leaving the old seat behind, even if you have molded it perfectly to your shape. Growth demands movement. Transformation begins when you realize that no single chair can hold the entirety of who you are becoming. I once spoke with an artist who could never work unless she sat in a particular chair by the window. She believed the chair gave her inspiration, that without it she would not be able to create. But when she was forced to work elsewhere, she discovered that it was not the chair that held the magic. It was her willingness to inhabit herself fully. When she sat there, the chair had become a ritual object, a doorway into her creative unconscious. Once she understood this, she learned to carry that doorway within herself, no matter where she sat. This is the great lesson of all symbols. They are mirrors pointing back to the inner reality. The chair, the window, the tools, they are only as powerful as a meaning you project upon them. When you walk into a room and see your chair waiting, something deep within you relaxes. It is as though your unconscious whispers, "This is where you belong." But I challenge you to ask yourself, do you belong there because it is truly aligned with your soul, or because you have simply carved a rut into the fabric of your life? Too often, people confuse the known with the meaningful. Just because you have always chosen the same seat does not mean it is the seat your soul needs today. Sometimes you must deliberately sit elsewhere, disrupting your patterns, just to see what stirs in the shadows of your mind. The psyche thrives on such small acts of rebellion. They awaken parts of you that routine has lulled to sleep. I remember watching a man enter a circle of chairs. He hesitated for a long moment, then chose the one directly opposite the door. When I asked him why, he said, "I want to see who's coming." It was a simple answer, but behind it was a lifetime of wounds, of feeling unsafe, of needing to control every entry point to his world. That choice was not trivial. It was the echo of his trauma, silently replaying itself. The next time you choose a seat, notice what drives you. Is it comfort, visibility, distance, safety? Or is it something deeper, something you cannot yet name? Every choice you make carries the weight of your unconscious history. The chair you love most is not just an object, it is a story, a symbol, a bridge to something inside you that longs to be understood. When you sit in it, you are not only resting, you are entering a dialogue with yourself. What if you treated every act of sitting as sacred? What if you paused, even for a second, to ask, who am I as I sit here? What is this seat teaching me about myself? Such questions are not trivial. They are the keys that unlock the doors of the psyche. There is something deeply archetypal about the moment we choose to sit. It is an act that bridges the realms of movement and stillness, a transition from outward striving to inward being. Think of the great teachers and philosophers, how they were often depicted seated when imparting wisdom. To sit is to declare, I am here, present, and receptive. When you settle into a chair, whether consciously or not, you are engaging with this ancient symbolism. The unconscious understands it well. It knows that to sit is to create a boundary around a moment, to say that this space, this time has meaning. Have you ever noticed how certain chairs invite you to speak differently, to think differently? A simple kitchen chair may keep you grounded, practical, focused on the ordinary flow of life. But place yourself in a deep armchair with its generous cushions and enveloping arms, and something changes. You might find yourself drifting into memory, reflection, even reverie. The chair becomes not only a seat, but a vessel, a container for the mind's wanderings. It is no different from the way a dream sets the stage for the unconscious to reveal itself. In this way, every chair is a dream symbol made tangible, a physical place where the soul reveals its posture. The way you sit tells its own story. Some people perch on the edge of their seats, ready to spring into action, unable to relax fully. This posture suggests an inner restlessness, a psyche that is never quite at home in the present moment. Others sink back so deeply that they almost vanish, as though they are surrendering to the embrace of the unconscious, content to be carried away by its currents. Neither posture is right or wrong, but both are worth noticing. What does your body do when you sit? Are you leaning forward, always reaching for what is next? Or are you leaning back, retreating from the demands of the world? The unconscious loves patterns, and it reveals them through the smallest of gestures. Think of how you return to the same chair every day without questioning why. That habit is a clue, a ritual you perform without knowing it. You may say it is because the chair is comfortable, but what does comfortable mean for you? Comfort is not merely physical, it is also psychological. A certain chair may feel right because it reflects the way you see yourself. For someone who fears being noticed, a low, shadowed seat may feel like a sanctuary. For someone who craves authority, a high-backed chair with a commanding presence might feel like a natural throne. These choices are not accidents. They are fragments of your inner mythos made visible. When I speak of mythos, I speak of the archetypal narratives that shape our lives from beneath the surface. We all carry a myth, a personal story that our unconscious is constantly enacting. Your chair is part of that enactment. It might seem absurd to place such importance on a piece of furniture, but the psyche does not measure significance the way the ego does. To the unconscious, everything is alive, everything is symbolic. The chair you choose may say more about your inner life than the words you use to describe yourself. Consider the archetype of the ruler, the throne. In every culture, it has been more than a seat. It is a statement of power, of divine order. When you sit in a chair that resembles a throne, even in the smallest way, a part of you aligns with that archetype. You might feel more certain, more stable, more capable of decision. But the shadow of the ruler also lurks there. The throne can isolate as much as it empowers. Sitting in a chair that places you above others can create distance, even loneliness. The unconscious always seeks balance. If you lean too far into the ruler's posture, life will remind you of the need for humility. If you shrink too far into the background, the soul will cry out for recognition, urging you to sit in the seat that makes you feel your own worth. The simple act of sitting can also reveal how you carry your shadow. I have seen people who choose broken, inconfortable chairs, as if they believe they deserve nothing better. They sit in ways that diminish their presence, as though apologizing for taking up space. This is not a conscious choice, but a reflection of wounds buried deep within. The psyche, when left unhealed, will seek objects that confirm its pain. If you find yourself drawn to seats that do not support you, ask why. What part of you feels unworthy of comfort, of being held? There is a dream I remember vividly from a patient I once treated. In her dream, she was in a vast cathedral filled with chairs of every shape and size. Some were made of gold, others of simple wood, some so delicate they looked like they might break. She walked through the rows, unsure where to sit. Every time she reached for one, it either crumbled or disappeared. Finally, she found one that felt right. A chair that was neither too grand nor too plain. A chair that seemed to breathe with her own presence. When she sat, she felt a great calm, as though the chair was saying, "This is where you belong." In waking life, this dream was telling her something crucial. She had been trying to live in roles that did not fit her soul. She had sat in chairs of expectation, of others' approval, but never in her own rightful seat. The dream urged her to claim that seat, to own her existence without apology. Your own life is filled with these dreamlike moments, though you may not recognize them. Every time you choose a chair, you are making a statement about how you inhabit the world. Do you claim your seat with confidence? Or do you hesitate, waiting for permission? Do you seek the corner, the shadowed places, or do you sit where the light falls? These choices are not random. They are the echoes of your inner life, made visible the next time you enter a room. I invite you to pause, look at the chairs, feel their presence. Which one calls to you? Which one repels you? Why? This is not about which seat is physically better, but which resonates with your soul state. Perhaps you will realize that the chair you always avoid is the one you most need to try. It might feel uncomfortable at first, not because the seat is wrong, but because it confronts a part of you you have ignored. Growth often begins in Sucht, discomfort. We are creatures of habit, and our habits are the threads that weave the tapestry of our unconscious patterns. But the moment you sit differently, in a new place or posture, you create the possibility of seeing the world differently. A chair can be a teacher if you let it. It can show you where you resist, where you cling, where you yearn for more. It can reveal whether you are truly resting or merely collapsing under the weight of life. There is a peculiar truth about the human psyche. We project ourselves onto the world around us. The chair you choose is not simply a piece of wood or fabric. It becomes a mirror of your state of being. When you sit, you imprint your essence onto that object. Over time, and the chair can hold the invisible imprint of your presence, your sighs, your tensions, your daydreams. When you return to it, you feel a familiarity, as if the chair remembers you. This is not mere imagination. It is the unconscious recognizing its own reflection in the things it has touched. We are not separate from the objects we use daily. They become, in some strange way, extensions of our inner world. Have you ever felt a subtle discomfort sitting in someone else's favorite chair? You tell yourself it's only furniture. But deep down, you sense something. The unconscious energy of that person has shaped the chair, left a trace of their being upon it. Some chairs are alive with warmth, while others carry a coldness or tension. We feel these things, though we rarely have words for them. The psyche speaks through sensations, through whispers of intuition that the rational mind dismisses. Yet if you pay attention, you will see that every chair is not only a seat, but a vessel of invisible stories. In dreams, chairs often appear as symbols of readiness, power, or absence. A broken chair in a dream might reflect a feeling of inadequacy or a lack of support in life. An empty chair can symbolize someone missing, a presence that should be there but is not. A chair turned away from you may represent rejection or the fear of confrontation. These images rise from the depth of the unconscious. Speaking in the language of symbol and metaphor, to sit in a chair in a dream can be a moment of claiming your place in the world, just as in waking life. This is why I encourage those who explore their dreams to look closely at where they sit and how they sit. These details are never trivial. The archetype of the chair is older than we think. In many ancient cultures, the act of sitting was not as casual as it is today. It was sacred. In tribal gatherings, the elder's seat was not just a practical place to rest, but a representation of wisdom, of connection to the ancestors. To sit in that seat without permission would have been unthinkable. It would have been seen as a challenge to the order of the world. Even now, this instinct lingers. We feel it when we sit in a stranger's chair or when someone occupies our own without asking. There is a subtle sense of being displaced, of having our psychic territory trespassed upon. The posture we take in a chair also reveals the interplay between ego and soul. A rigid, upright stance might show a desire to control, to dominate the experience, while a slouched posture can reveal a retreat into inner landscapes, a surrender to the pull of the unconscious. There is nothing inherently wrong with either, but both tell a story of where you are in the moment. When I observe people in a room, I often watch how they sit as much as what they say. The body rarely lies. It expresses truths that the mind tries to conceal. The way someone grips the arm of a chair, the way they shift their weight, the way they tuck their feet beneath them, these are gestures of the soul speaking through the flesh. Your favorite chair at home may be the closest thing you have to a personal sanctuary. It is where you read, dream, I think, or simply stare out the window. Over time, it becomes imbued with your inner world. For some, this chair is a place of reflection where the unconscious feels safe enough to rise to the surface. For others, it becomes a place of escape, a seat where they numb themselves against the demands of life. The difference lies not in the chair itself, but in the state of mind you bring to it. Have you ever considered the kind of energy you pour into your chair? Do you treat it as a place of conscious rest or unconscious avoidance? I recall the story of an old professor who had one single chair in his study. It was worn, frayed at the edges, and far from luxurious, yet he refused to replace it. When asked why, he smiled and said, "This chair knows my thoughts." He meant that in all his years of reading, writing, and contemplating life, that chair had become a partner to his soul's journey. It was not about comfort, but about continuity, about a dialogue between the self and the object that had quietly witnessed his becoming. In that sense, the chair had become a symbol of his own process of individuation. He did not need another one, because this was not just a chair, it was a part of him. What about the chair you avoid? There are always seats we do not choose, corners we do not enter, angles we do not face. Ask yourself why. Perhaps that chair feels too exposed, as if sitting there would place you under a spotlight you cannot bear. Perhaps it feels too rigid, too unforgiving, reminding you of some forgotten discipline you have abandoned. Or perhaps it feels too soft, too inviting, stirring a vulnerability. You do not wish to feel. These small aversions are clues. They tell you what you are not ready to face in yourself. The chair is a paradox. It offers rest, but it also demands awareness. It says, sit, but do not forget who you are as you sit. When you drop into a chair unconsciously, it becomes a place of forgetting, of drifting. But when you sit with presence, even the simplest wooden stool becomes a throne of being. It is not the luxury of the chair that matters, but the consciousness with which you inhabit it. I have seen people sit on the ground with more grace and authority than others on the grandest seats. What matters is not the object, but the alignment between inner and outer worlds. Think of the chairs in sacred spaces, cathedrals, temples, meditation halls. These are not designed for luxury. They are designed to hold you in a posture of openness and reverence. The chair in such places becomes an altar of the body, inviting you to sit with dignity and humility. What if you treated your own chair at home the same way? What if every time you sat down, you took a breath and acknowledged that this too is a sacred act? You might find that your thoughts become clearer, your heart more open, or your soul more attuned to the quiet whispers that surround you. There is a subtle energy that flows through every chair you have ever sat on, as if the very act of sitting leaves an imprint on the fabric of time. Think about the places where you have paused in your life, the benches in train stations, the chairs in waiting rooms, the seats in classrooms where you once dreamed of who you might become. All of these places still hold fragments of you. A part of your psyche lingers there, just as the memory of those moments lingers in you. When you choose a chair, you are not only selecting a place to rest, you are entering into a quiet contract with the space itself. That chair becomes the witness to your stillness, your contemplation, your vulnerability. There is a reason we remember certain chairs so vividly. A chair can be a marker of transformation. It might be the chair where you first heard devastating news, where you felt your soul crack open under the weight of grief. Or it might be the chair where you first wrote words that truly came from the depth of your being, a place where the unconscious rose like a tide and left you changed. These moments anchor themselves in the objects around them, and the chair becomes a kind of archaeological artifact of the soul. Years later, when you sit there again, you can feel the echo of what you experienced, as though the memory has been carved into the wood, the fabric, the very shape of the seat. I have always believed that objects are never truly inert. We think of them as lifeless, but the psyche animates them. The chair you love most at home is alive, because you have filled it with your essence. It carries your posture, your habits, the weight of your thoughts. It is shaped by you, just as you are subtly shaped by it. When you sit in a chair that is truly yours, you feel a deep alignment, as if the object and your body are speaking the same language. But when you sit in a chair that feels foreign, you may feel awkward, restless, unable to settle. This is not just about design or ergonomics. It is about resonance. The unconscious senses when something does not harmonize with your inner world. The choice of chair is also tied to our archetypal roles in life. We all have moments where we unconsciously reach for the throne moments where we need to feel in control, to take up space, to assert ourselves. Then there are times when we long for the nest, the soft, enveloping chair that reminds us of safety, of the womb, of being held. Some people spend their lives seeking only one of these, always the throne, or always the nest, because they fear the opposite. The one who always chooses the throne may fear vulnerability, softness, surrender. The one who always chooses the nest may fear standing in their own authority, claiming their place in the world. But the psyche needs both. You cannot become whole if you only sit in one kind of chair. Have you ever watched someone who cannot sit still? They shift, fidget, perch, lean forward, and then back. This is often not about discomfort in the body, but discomfort in the mind. Sitting still requires a kind of surrender, a willingness to meet oneself. Many people avoid this encounter. They fill their lives with motion, with noise, with tasks, because stillness terrifies them. But the chair, in its quiet way, invites you into stillness, whether you like it or not. When you resist, it becomes a mirror of your restlessness. When you accept, it becomes a doorway into deeper awareness. There is a story of a poet I once knew who said he could not write unless he sat in a certain chair. It was an old wooden chair with a slightly uneven leg, and to anyone else, it looked ordinary, even uncomfortable. But to him, that chair was a portal. He said that when he sat there, it was as if his unconscious knew it was time to speak. I asked him once, what would happen if you wrote in another chair? He tried it. Reluctantly, and at first, nothing came. He felt blocked, uninspired, but over time, he realized that the magic was not in the chair itself, but in the ritual of choosing it. The act of sitting there had become a signal to his unconscious, a way of saying, now I am ready to listen. We all have such rituals, even if we do not recognize them. Our favorite chairs, our favorite corners, our quiet places. All of them are invitations to enter into dialogue with the depths of who we are. Think also of the chairs in your past, the one you sat in at your grandmother's table, the seat by the window in your childhood home, the place where you first waited for someone you loved. These chairs are no longer just objects in memory. They have become symbols holding the emotional charge of those moments. When you remember them, you do not just recall their shape or color, you recall how it felt to be that person. In that moment, in that particular seat, the chair is a gateway to your own history. Even the way you arrange chairs in a room reflects the structure of your inner world. Do you place them facing each other, inviting conversation and intimacy, or do you scatter them apart, creating distance and separation? A room full of chairs is like a map of the psyche. It tells a story about how you relate to others, how you hold space for connection, how you protect your own solitude. The unconscious sees these arrangements, even if your conscious mind does not. When you walk into a room and feel comfortable or uneasy, it is often because the arrangement of the chairs speaks to something deep in your psyche, something about closeness, hierarchy, or belonging. The chair is also tied to the archetype of the teacher, the mentor, the wise elder. We picture these figures seated, grounded, their stillness radiating presence. A teacher who paces restlessly may convey anxiety, but one who sits with calm authority creates a field of trust. In the same way, the chair you choose when speaking to others says something about your own inner authority. Do you sit low, looking up as though seeking permission? Or do you sit high, overlooking others, perhaps unintentionally claiming dominance? These are not trivial details. They are expressions of the roles we unconsciously step into. Sometimes the chair you choose can be an act of rebellion. I have seen people deliberately avoid the main chair at the table because they do not want the responsibility or attention that comes with it. Others claim it instantly, needing to assert their place in the hierarchy. Both choices are meaningful. They reveal how you see yourself in relation to others. The unconscious is always negotiating these roles, often without your awareness. As you listen to these words, I invite you to recall your favorite chair, the one you gravitate to without thinking. Why that one? Is it because of its softness, its support, its view of the room? Or is it because of what it says about you? The role it allows you to play. There is no judgment here. There is only curiosity, the kind that opens the door to self-understanding. The next time you sit, ask yourself, what part of me is choosing this chair right now? Which archetype is at play? You may be surprised at what you discover. There is a subtle and almost sacred silence that descends when you truly inhabit a chair. It is as if the world pauses for a moment, allowing you to sink not just into the fabric or the wood, but into the depths of your own being. A chair, in this sense, becomes more than a seat. It becomes a threshold. On one side is the chaos of movement, the endless chase of daily life. On the other side is stillness, reflection, and the quiet murmurs of the unconscious. The simple act of sitting marks this transition, and whether you realize it or not, your psyche feels the shift. When I speak of the unconscious, I do not mean a dark, inaccessible abyss, but a living reality that is constantly shaping you. Every gesture you make, every object you choose, is influenced by its currents. Your chair is no exception. You may believe you choose it for its design or comfort, but your unconscious is always there, guiding your hand, whispering. This one, it chooses not for convenience, but for resonance, for the way, the shape, the position. The energy of the chair harmonizes with the archetype you are embodying in that moment. Think of how a chair can change the way you speak. Sit in a high, commanding chair and feel your voice deepen. Your words become deliberate, as if you are channeling authority itself. Sit cross-legged on a low Tsushiyoni set, and you may find yourself speaking in softer tones, as though you are in the presence of something intimate and personal. The chair shapes your body, and the body, in turn, shapes your psyche. This is why the throne has always been such a potent symbol of power. It is not the person who makes the throne powerful, it is the throne that magnifies the person, drawing out the archetype of the ruler, whether they are aware of it or not. But the unconscious is tricky. It will often push you toward chairs that mirror your unresolved patterns. A man who feels insecure may choose the largest, most imposing chair to mask his vulnerability. A woman who has learned to make herself small may always choose the least visible seat, tucked away in a corner, even when she longs to be seen. These choices are not accidents. They are the stage directions of the unconscious, playing out a script you may not even realize you are following. To see this is to begin the work of individuation, the process of becoming aware of your own inner dynamics and integrating them. I once observed a group of people entering a room for a seminar. There were no assigned seats, yet within minutes, the hierarchy of the group was revealed by where they sat. Some immediately chose the front row, eager to be close to the source of knowledge, to be seen as engaged and present. Others drifted to the back, preferring distance, anonymity, a safe vantage point from which they could observe without being exposed. The chairs themselves became a map of the psyche, showing me who was ready to step forward, who was still hiding in the shadows. And as the seminar unfolded, these positions subtly influenced the participants' behavior. Those at the front asked questions, challenged ideas, interacted freely. Those at the back remained silent, their bodies half turned away, as if protecting themselves from the vulnerability of participation. This is not to say that sitting at the front is always a sign of confidence, nor that sitting at the back is always fear. Sometimes the roles reverse. A true seeker may choose the back because they do not need to prove themselves. They are content to absorb, to listen. And sometimes the person at the front is not confident but desperate for validation. This is why I tell you, your choice of chair is a mirror, but you must look carefully to see what it reflects. Do not judge it by appearances alone. The archetypes of the psyche are always at play here. The chair of the ruler, the chair of the lover, of the chair of the sage. They all exist within you. The question is, which chair are you sitting in today? Which archetype have you allowed to take its seat within your soul? If you are always sitting in the same chair, it may be time to ask whether you are living from only one narrow aspect of yourself. Life becomes richer when you allow yourself to inhabit all the chairs, to experience all the roles that your psyche contains. Sometimes you must sit in the throne of your own authority. Other times you must sit in the humble seat of the student, willing to listen, to learn, to be transformed. I once spoke with a young man who could never bring himself to sit in the main chair at his family table. He always chose the side seat, even when his father, who once sat at the head, had passed away. When I asked him why, he said, that chair doesn't feel like mine. It was as though the archetype of the father, the king, still hovered there, waiting for someone to claim it. But the young man felt unworthy, as though stepping into that seat would be a betrayal, or perhaps an admission that he was now the one who must lead. Over time, he realized that his avoidance of the chair was tied to his fear of growing into his own authority, his own adulthood. When he finally sat there, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence, he felt a subtle shift within. The chair had not changed, but it was not about the furniture, it was about the inner posture he had finally claimed. The unconscious uses chairs as symbols because they are tied to something fundamental. The act of resting, of claiming a place, of being, we live in a world that glorifies movement, productivity, the endless chase of doing, but the psyche longs for being, it longs for the moment when you sit, breathe, and allow life to flow through you rather than rushing to control it. Asher, in its quiet way, teaches this lesson. It says, here, stop, be still, listen. And if you heed that invitation, you may discover that the stillness of the chair opens doors to parts of yourself you have long ignored. Chairs also have a collective significance. Think of a circle of chairs around a fire, where stories are told and wisdom shared. Think of the empty chair set aside for the absent one, a gesture of remembrance and longing. Think of the council chambers, where the arrangement of chairs determines who has a voice and who does not. These arrangements are not just social constructs, they are expressions of the collective unconscious. They reveal the invisible patterns of power, connection, and meaning that bind us together. Perhaps you have noticed that when someone enters a room and sits without hesitation, they seem to command the space. It is not always because they are the loudest or the most confident, but because they have a kind of inner alignment. They know who they are, and so any chair they choose becomes their rightful seat. This is the goal of individuation, to become so integrated, so whole, that it does not matter where you sit for you. Carry your center with you. A true king or queen does not need a throne to be recognized. The throne merely reflects what is already within them. I invite you to think of your own life in this way. Where are you sitting? Not just physically, but psychically. Are you in the chair of your own authority, or are you slumped in the corner seat of self-doubt? Do you choose seats that reflect your true self, or do you hide in chairs that make you feel invisible? These questions are not superficial, they are invitations to see yourself more clearly, to become conscious of the symbols you live by every day. There is a secret dialogue between you and the chair you occupy, one that transcends mere utility. It is a dialogue of energy, of posture, of the archetypal patterns that move unseen beneath your conscious mind. When you sit, you either rise into yourself or collapse into the shadows you have yet to face. The chair does not lie. It reflects the way you hold your own soul. A rigid spine may reveal a need to project strength, a fear of appearing vulnerable. A posture that melts into the seat may suggest surrender, but sometimes also resignation, as though life's weight has bent you into the contours of your own avoidance. Every gesture you make upon that seat is a language, and the unconscious reads it fluently. If you begin to observe your relationship to chairs, you will start to notice the invisible field of power they create. There is always that one seat at the table that commands the most presence, often without a word. Why do you think leaders throughout history have always had their thrones elevated, their chairs positioned at the head of the gathering? It is not simply tradition, it is an instinctive recognition of the archetype of authority. Even today, in modern offices or homes, this pattern persists. The head of the table, the chair with the clearest view, the one facing the door. These are all subtle claims to the energy of the ruler. When you sit there, you feel it when someone else sits there, you feel it as well, perhaps as an intrusion or a challenge. The unconscious loves these dynamics because they reveal where we stand in relation to our own inner king, queen, or sage. If you avoid the chair of authority, ask yourself why. Are you afraid of what it would mean to take that place, to sit in a chair that demands presence and clarity is no small task. It is to declare, even silently, I am here and I will be seen. Many fear this, for to be seen is also to be vulnerable. Yet, without stepping into that seat, without claiming your space, a part of your potential remains unexpressed. I recall a man who, during our sessions, always chose the chair closest to the wall, furthest from the light. When I asked him why, he shrugged and said, I'm just used to it. But as our conversations deepened, it became clear that this choice was tied to a lifetime of trying not to be noticed. As a child, he had learned that visibility invited criticism, judgment, or worse. So he hid, even as an adult, not just in conversations, but in the very seat he chose. When he finally dared to sit in the chair at the center of the room, something shifted. He said it felt strange, almost uncomfortable, as though the light was too bright. But slowly, that discomfort turned into a sense of presence. He realized that his choice of chair had been a map of his own avoidance, and by changing it, he began to change the story he was living. Chairs are not passive. They carry the energy of those who have sat in them. A chair that has held anger, despair, or deep reflection is different from a chair that has held joy or laughter. You can sense this if you are attentive. Walk into an old theater. Sit in one of the seats and you may feel the echoes of countless emotions that have played out there. The seat holds memory, not in words but in impressions, in subtle vibrations that the unconscious picks up instantly. This is why we sometimes feel uneasy in certain seats and comforted in others. It is not the chair itself, but what it has absorbed, the archetypal energy that clings to it like invisible dust. Think, too, of how we offer chairs to others. When you invite someone into your home, you say, sit here. This is not a neutral gesture, it is a symbolic one. The chair you offer reflects how you perceive them, how much space you are willing to give them in your world. A guest given the best seat feels honored, welcomed into the heart of your home's energy. A guest left standing while others sit feels excluded, as though no space has been made for their presence. These gestures are unconscious, but they carry tremendous weight. The way we arrange chairs for others is a reflection of our own inner hospitality, how open or closed we are to connection. The dream of an empty chair is particularly powerful. It often signifies absence, longing, or potential. An empty chair at a table can represent someone who is no longer there, a parent who has passed, a child who has grown and left, a lover who has walked away. But it can also represent a part of yourself that you have yet to invite into the room. Perhaps it is the part of you that holds wisdom, or the part of you that is unafraid of power, or the childlike part that longs for play. In this way, an empty chair is both a symbol of loss and an invitation to growth. It asks, who or what will you allow to sit here? There is also something deeply revealing about how we sit when we are alone versus when we are with others. Alone, we may sprawl, relax, let our guard down, as though the chair is an extension of our private world. In the presence of others, we adjust, straighten, make ourselves smaller or larger, depending on how we wish to be perceived. The chair becomes a stage upon which we perform our social masks. This is why the unconscious choice of seat in a social setting is so telling. It shows whether you are seeking connection, hiding, asserting, or retreating. The chair, in its quiet way, reminds us of the tension between comfort and challenge. We need places of rest, but we also need places that push us to grow. If you only ever sit in the chair that feels safe, you may never discover the strength that comes from sitting where you feel slightly exposed. Likewise, if you only choose the throne of control, you may never taste the freedom of surrender that comes from sitting somewhere soft and unassuming. To live fully is to sit in many chairs, to experience the full spectrum of what it means to be human. I urge you to see your daily choices with new eyes. The next time you walk into a room, do not just pick the first seat, you see. Pause, feel the energy of each chair, not with logic, but with intuition. Ask yourself, which chair calls to me? Which one challenges me? Which one do I fear? Then sit where your soul feels the most alive, not just where your habits lead you. This small act of awareness can open doors to insights you did not know you were seeking. A chair is not just a piece of furniture, it's an archetypal teacher. It teaches you how to hold yourself, how to meet your own presence, how to claim your place in the world. It is the silent witness to your moments of triumph and despair, your laughter and your tears. And if you listen closely, it will tell you the truth about who you are. A chair is never simply a chair. It is a reflection of the state of your psyche. An anchor for your body, and a mirror of your soul's posture. Have you ever noticed how a chair becomes something more when you sit with intention? It is not just wood, metal, or fabric. It becomes a presence almost like a companion, holding you in a moment of stillness that can either comfort or confront you. When you approach a chair, whether consciously or unconsciously, you carry with you the entirety of your past, the weight of your experiences, the shape of your habits, the patterns of your thoughts, and the chair receives it all, silently reflecting it back to you. The unconscious loves these moments of contact because they are opportunities for revelation. When you lean back and allow yourself to rest, you reveal how much you trust life to hold you. When you sit rigidly, never fully surrendering your weight, you reveal the part of you that does not trust, that fears being seen as vulnerable. The chair, in this way, is a diagnostic tool of the psyche. It shows where you are willing to let go and where you are still clinging to control. Consider how a child claims a chair. Children rarely choose seats based on status or appearance. They choose the one that calls to their sense of curiosity, their desire for connection or adventure, As adults, we lose this spontaneity. We choose chairs based on the roles we feel we must play. This one makes me look strong. That one makes me look approachable. Another keeps me invisible. These are masks, projections of the ego, shaped by the collective expectations we have absorbed over time. Yet beneath these choices is still the child, longing for a seat that feels true. The work of the psyche is to uncover that truth, to ask yourself, if I were free of fear, expectation, and habit, which chair would I choose? In my years of observing the human soul, I have seen how even the smallest preferences reveal the largest truths. A woman who always sits in a corner may be guarding her heart, protecting herself from intrusion. A man who insists on the middle seat may crave recognition, a desire to be central, to be noticed. These patterns are not random. They are part of the fabric of the archetypes we live by. When you start to see this, the world changes. A simple dining room becomes a field of symbols. Each chair holding a different energy, a different story. Sometimes the chair you choose reveals what you most desire but cannot yet claim. I knew a man who always admired the grand armchair in his study but never sat in it. He preferred a small, hard chair tucked by the door. When I asked him why, he said, that chair feels too important for me. In that moment, I understood that the grand chair was not just furniture, it was a symbol of his own unclaimed authority, his own inner strength. By avoiding it, he was avoiding the part of himself that wanted to step forward, to take up space. When he finally dared to sit in it, something shifted. He sat taller, spoke differently, as if a long-buried voice inside him had finally been given permission to speak. The chair then can be an initiation. It can be the threshold through which you confront the archetypes within you. To sit in a chair of power is to feel the weight of responsibility, the burden of choice. To sit in a chair of softness is to risk vulnerability, to allow yourself to be held. Both experiences are necessary, for wholeness is born from balance. You cannot live forever on the throne, nor can you remain forever curled up in safety. The soul demands movement between these states. A constant dialogue between strength and surrender. Even in our dreams, chairs hold, meaning to dream of a broken chair might signal a feeling that you have lost your place in life, that your foundations are unstable. To dream of a chair that is too large for you could represent an archetype that feels overwhelming, a role or identity you are not yet ready to inhabit. On the other hand, to dream of a chair that fits you perfectly, one that feels warm and familiar, might signify that you are aligned with your true self, that you have found a moment of inner harmony. These dream symbols are not random, they are the language of the unconscious. Using the chair as a metaphor for your relationship to the world, think of the empty chairs in your life, the seats left unfilled at family gatherings, the spaces that once held someone you loved. An empty chair is more than absence. It is a presence of what once was, or what could have been. It is a vessel for memory, for longing, for the archetypal truth that every absence is also an invitation to reflect. Who do you imagine sitting there What part of your soul does that empty seat call to? There is also a ritualistic quality to how we arrange chairs in circles. They symbolize equality, a collective space where every voice is honored. In rows, they create a hierarchy, directing all attention toward a single focal point. These arrangements are not merely functional, they are expressions of our collective unconscious, shaping how we relate to each other and to ourselves. A circle of chairs invites dialogue. A single chair on a stage commands attention. What does this say about the spaces you create in your own life? Are you inviting connection, or are you seeking control? The unconscious is always watching, always interpreting. It notices whether you sit comfortably or whether you seem to shrink into your seat. It notices when you sit with grace, when your spine aligns with the invisible axis of your own truth. A chair can help you discover that alignment if you let it. Try this the next time you sit. Close your eyes. Feel the way the chair holds you. Feel where your body resists and where it relaxes. Ask yourself, what does this posture say about my state of mind? What is this chair teaching me? You might find that something shifts, that you become aware of a tension or fear you did not know you were carrying. The act of sitting, simple as it is, can be a meditation. It can be a way of entering into communion with yourself. When you sit consciously, you are no longer just a person in a chair. You are a soul in dialogue with the symbols of the world. This awareness transforms everything. Suddenly, your living room is no longer a random collection of furniture, but a sacred space. Each chair, a different archetype waiting to be embodied. When you begin to recognize the symbolic power of a chair, you start to see your daily life as a living dream, where even the smallest choices carry meaning. The chair becomes a microcosm of your inner architecture, its backrest, its arms, its softness or hardness. All of these aspects resonate with parts of your psyche. A chair with firm lines and rigid support speaks to the part of you that craves structure, boundaries, and clarity. A chair with soft cushions and deep curves calls to the part of you that longs for surrender, comfort, and ease. It is as though the chair, without words, asks, which version of yourself will you allow to sit here today? There is an intimacy in the act of sitting that we often overlook. When you sit, you are both grounded and vulnerable. You place your body in a position of trust, allowing an object to hold you, to support your weight. This simple act mirrors a deeper truth about life. We must all find places to rest, to let go of control, to be carried. And yet, for many, this is difficult. They sit without truly resting, as though even in stillness they are preparing to flee. They sit but remain tense, unable to let the chair fully support them. This tension is not in the body alone, it is in the mind, in the spirit, in the parts of the self that do not feel safe enough to be held. I once knew a woman who had a chair in her living room that no one ever sat on, not her, not her guests. It was always perfectly arranged, as if it were there only for show. When I asked her why, she hesitated and said, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's meant to be used. As we spoke, it became clear that the unused chair represented a part of herself she had locked away, it was too pristine, too perfect, untouchable, like the dream she once had, but never allowed herself to pursue. That chair, sitting silently in the corner, became a symbol of all the potential she had not yet dared to live. When she finally sat in it, she cried. Not because the chair was uncomfortable, but because she realized how much of her life she had left untouched, waiting. A chair can hold memory in ways we cannot fully explain. The seat at a kitchen table where your father once sat may still feel like his presence lingers, even years after he is gone. To sit there might bring comfort, or it might stir a deep edge, as though the absence has etched itself into the wood. This is why we sometimes avoid certain chairs or gravitate toward others we feel without knowing why. That they carry stories, energies, echoes of lives lived. If you pay attention, you may realize that sitting in a particular chair brings out different moods or thoughts. This is not imagination alone. It is the unconscious responding to the subtle memory held within the object. In group settings, the choice of chair can be even more revealing. Watch how people enter a room with many seats available. Some rush to claim the best spot, while others hang back, unsure where to place themselves. This is a reflection of the inner archetypes at play. Those who claim the center may embody the warrior or ruler archetype, needing to assert their presence. Those who linger at the edges may be guided by the archetype of the hermit or the observer, preferring to watch rather than engage. These are not fixed roles. They shift depending on context, but they always reveal something about where a person's energy resides in that moment. The unconscious also expresses itself in how long we remain seated. Some sit as if rooted, unwilling to move, holding on to a moment or a conversation. Others cannot stay still, rising and shifting as though the chair burns beneath them. These tendencies reflect how we relate to stillness, to reflection, to being present. A person who cannot sit may be one who cannot face the silence within themselves, who fears what might surface when all distractions fade. Chairs have long been associated with authority, and not just in royal courts or political chambers. Even in a simple family home, there is often the father's chair, the mother's chair, or the guest's chair. These roles form naturally because we project meaning onto objects. A chair is not just wood and fabric. It is a throne, a symbol of whoever occupies it. When you sit in someone else's chair, you feel, often without words, the tension of stepping into their space, their energy. You are momentarily wearing their crown, carrying their weight. Think of the rituals around chairs in ceremonies or gatherings. In a wedding, there are seats reserved for those who hold special significance. In a courtroom, the judge's seat is elevated, a physical manifestation of impartial authority. In classrooms, the teacher's chair at the front symbolizes knowledge and guidance. These are not accidental placements. They are deliberate structures that communicate to the unconscious, who holds power, who is listening, who is to be listened to. We have inherited these patterns from centuries of archetypal storytelling. Your own life is no different. Every time you sit down, you are subtly enacting a role At the dinner table, you may unconsciously take the seat that aligns with your family's hierarchy or your place in the social dynamic. At work, you may choose a seat that reflects your sense of confidence or your desire to remain unnoticed. These are not trivial behaviors. They are expressions of your relationship to the world. To become conscious of them is to begin reclaiming your own narrative. There is also a shadow to the act of sitting. Too much sitting, too much stillness can lead to stagnation. Life demands balance, the rhythm of sitting and rising, of resting and acting. Some people stay too long in the same chair, both literally and metaphorically. They remain in roles that no longer fit, relationships that no longer nourish, environments that no longer challenge them. The chair becomes a trap, a place of comfort that slowly suffocates the spirit. To live fully, one must learn when to rise, when to leave the chair behind and seek a new seat. A new perspective. Imagine for a moment all the chairs you have sat in throughout your life. Picture them lined up in a long corridor, the school desks, the park benches, the cafe chair, seats on buses and trains. Each one holds a piece of your journey, a fragment of your story. Some are tied to joy, others to sorrow, others to moments of profound realization. If you could walk down that corridor and sit in each one again, what would you feel? What memories would surface? The exercise may seem strange, but it is a powerful way to see how the simplest objects have shaped you, how they have held you through every chapter of your becoming. A chair, then, is never empty. It holds not only your body, but the invisible weight of your inner life. It is a place where you stop running, where you encounter yourself. If you treat it with the reverence it deserves, you might discover that every time you sit, you are entering into a dialogue with the universe. The chair whispers, "Here is your place for now. Be present, be awake, listen." And if you truly listen, even a moment in a simple chair can become a doorway to understanding. When you sit, you are not only finding a place for your body, you are declaring your relationship to the world and to your inner self. The simple act of lowering yourself into a chair is a form of surrender, surrender to gravity, to stillness, to the reality of where you are in that moment. It is a gesture that says, "I am here, and I will allow myself to be held." But how often do you sit unconsciously without feeling the weight of this act? Most people fall into chairs with no awareness, yet this unexamined ritual is a reflection of how they approach life itself, unaware, restless, disconnected from the quiet power of being present. There's a rhythm to life that can be felt through the way you use a chair, rising and sitting, action and rest. These are the twin forces that shape your days. Yet, modern life has disrupted this rhythm. We sit too long, not as a conscious act of rest, but as a passive state of disconnection. A chair is meant to be a sacred pose, not a prison. When you forget this, when you sit for hours without awareness, the chair becomes a mirror of your stagnation, your fear of moving, your reluctance to engage with the world. But when you sit with intention, even for a moment, the chair becomes a throne of presence. a sacred space where body and soul meet in stillness. I have often wondered what your favorite chair says about the archetype you are closest to. The one who chooses the firm, upright seat is often the warrior or the ruler, following discipline, vigilance, and readiness. The one who melts into a soft armchair may be guided by the lover or the dreamer, seeking the warmth of surrender, the intimacy of comfort. And the one who sits cross-legged on the floor, rejecting all conventional seats, may be the seeker, the mystic, the one who longs to feel the raw pulse of the earth beneath them. None of these are better or worse. They are simply different facets of the human soul. But the question is, do you know which archetype you are embodying when you sit? Or are you sitting out of habit, unaware of the energy you are invoking? Consider the symbolism of the empty chair at a table. It is not just a vacant seat, it is a silent presence. It holds the memory of someone who is absent, or the possibility of someone who might yet arrive. In some cultures, an empty chair is deliberately left for the unseen guest, the spirit, or the ancestor who is believed to join the gathering. This is not superstition, it is an acknowledgement of the archetypal truth that every chair, every space is part of a larger story. When you look at an empty chair, ask yourself, what or who does it represent? What longing or memory does it stir within me? There is a kind of magic in how we each have our chair. The one we instinctively return to in a living room, a cafe, or a meeting. It is as if we are drawn to a specific spot because it resonates with our unconscious needs. Some seek the safety of corners, where they can observe without being observed. Others choose the center, craving connection and visibility. These are not random preferences, they are expressions of your inner landscape, of the roles you feel most comfortable inhabiting. If you want to know yourself better, pay attention to these small choices. Ask, why do I always sit here? What does this seat give me that others do not? I remember a patient who could not sit in a chair with her back to the room. She always needed to see the door, to watch who was coming and going. When I asked her about this, she revealed that as a child she had lived in a home where unexpected outbursts and danger were constant. Her need to see the door was not just about comfort, it was about survival. The chair she chose was a reflection of that deep, unconscious vigilance. When she finally felt safe enough to sit facing the wall, she cried. It was a small shift, but it symbolized a profound healing. She no longer needed to guard herself in every moment. The way you inhabit a chair also reveals your relationship to stillness. Some people, when seated, remain tense, their shoulders tight, their hands restless. It is as though they cannot bear the quiet. They are afraid of what might arise if they stop moving. Others collapse into the chair, almost disappearing into it, as if they have been longing for rest but have forgotten what true rest feels like. The chair shows you where you are on this spectrum, whether you are living in tension or surrendé, or a mixture of both. The work of the soul is to find balance, to sit with alertness but not rigidity, with relaxation but not apathy. Think of the chairs in sacred places, a meditation cushion, a wooden bench in a chapel, a simple seat in a quiet corner. All of these carry a different energy from the chairs we use casually. They invite reverence, presence, and listening. What if you treated every chair in your life as if it were a sacred seat? What if, before sitting, you paused and asked yourself, who am I as I take this seat? What energy am I bringing here? Such questions can turn the act of sitting into a moment of awakening. Chairs are also symbolic in dreams because they represent readiness. To sit is to be prepared to take your place, to be present for what is coming. A dream of searching for a chair might reveal a feeling of not knowing where you belong in life, of not having found your true place. A dream of being unable to rise from a chair might symbolize being stuck in a role or identity that no longer serves you. These are not abstract ideas, they are messages from your unconscious, inviting you to reflect on where you sit, both literally and figuratively, in relationships. Chairs create invisible boundaries. Notice how couples often have their spots on the sofa or at the dining table. These spots are not merely practical, they are extensions of each person's inner space, their territory. When one partner sits in the other spot, even playfully, it can trigger subtle feelings of intrusion or displacement. Why? Because the chair holds the energy of its usual occupant, and stepping into that energy shifts the balance of the relationship, even momentarily. Understanding these dynamics can help you see how the smallest actions reflect the deeper currents of intimacy and power between people. To sit consciously is to reclaim the power of presence. Too often, we rush through life without noticing where or how we sit. But when you bring awareness to this simple act, something changes. You realize that the chair is not just supporting your body, it is holding a moment of your life, a fragment of your being. In that stillness, you can listen, not just to the world around you, but to the quiet voice within that is always speaking, waiting for you to hear. When you begin to sit with true awareness, you realize that every chair is a metaphor for the position you occupy in your own life. Are you sitting in the seat of the observer, watching the play of existence unfold without stepping in? Are you sitting in the seat of the Creator, actively shaping your reality with each thought and action? Or are you slumped in the seat of resignation, believing that life is happening to you and not through you? The way you sit physically, emotionally, spiritually, is a direct reflection of your inner narrative. The chair, in its silence, simply mirrors that truth back to you. There is an old saying that the posture of your body reveals the posture of your mind. When you sit upright, spine aligned, you are not merely holding your body, you are aligning with an inner axis of strength. When you collapse into a seat, your unconscious is often revealing where you have collapsed inwardly, where you have given up, or where you are carrying burdens too heavy to keep your head high. A chair does not judge you, it simply reveals you. It becomes a neutral container for whatever state of being you bring to it. Consider the archetype of the storyteller. In every culture, there is an image of a figure seated by the fire, weaving tales for those gathered around. The chair here is not just a place of comfort, it is a throne of wisdom, a seat of transmission. When you sit in such a posture, you are not simply occupying space, you are channeling something larger than yourself. This is why Certain chairs, perhaps a rocking chair or a well-worn wooden seat, carry an aura of stories untold, as if they have absorbed the voices of those who have spoken there over generations. When you sit in such a chair, can you feel it? Can you sense the archetypal energy of all the storytellers who came before you? We often underestimate how much a chair influences our state of consciousness. A chair that is too stiff might keep you overly alert, unable to relax into the deeper rhythms of thought and reflection. A chair that is too soft might lull you into passivity, numbing your creative energy. The unconscious notices these things, even if your conscious mind does not. This is why I often suggest that people choose their chairs with as much care as they choose their words. Your seat shapes your thoughts more than you realize. To find a chair that supports you fully, physically, emotionally, psychologically, is to create a space where your soul can breathe. There is also a ritualistic quality in how we take our seats in moments of transition. Think of the first day in a new place, a classroom, a workplace, a community gathering. The chair you choose becomes a symbolic declaration. This is who I will be here. You may gravitate towards the back, wanting to observe before stepping in, or you may sit front and center, declaring that you are ready to engage fully. These decisions are rarely conscious, yet they shape the way you experience that space and how others experience you. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to switch seats after you have chosen one? It is as though the chair has claimed you. And the unconscious loves these patterns because they give it a sense of structure, of predictability. Even when we do not see it happening, sometimes the chair you avoid is the one that holds your deepest lesson. I recall a man who could never sit in the high-backed armchair in his therapist's office. It felt too exposed. He said, too much like being on display. But this avoidance was not about the chair itself. It was about his fear of taking up space, of being fully seen. When he finally dared to sit in the chair, he felt an unexpected surge of emotion. I feel like I'm finally allowing myself to exist, he whispered. That moment was a breakthrough, not because of the chair, but because of what it symbolized. The act of sitting where he had once refused to sit was a symbolic act of claiming his own worth. A chair, like any archetype, can both liberate and trap you. It can be a place of rest, a sanctuary, a portal into deeper thought. But it can also become a place where you hide, where you stagnate. To sit for too long in the same place with the same thoughts is to become like a chair, yourself fixed, unmoving, waiting for something to happen. The unconscious warns against this. It nudges you with restlessness, with discomfort, urging you to rise, to change your position, to shift your perspective. Life is not meant to be lived in one seat forever. We are meant to sit, to rise, to move, to return, and to sit again, always with greater awareness. There is something profoundly moving about the chairs of the past. The seat where a grandmother once rocked her child, the bench where two lovers once met, the chair at the side of a hospital bed where someone waited through a long night. These chairs carry the weight of human experience, the silent imprints of love, fear, hope, and grief. When you encounter such a chair, you are touching more than wood or fabric. You are touching a piece of history, a fragment of the collective unconscious. If you allow yourself to feel it, you may sense a deep connection to all who have ever sat there, as if time itself folds inward for a moment. Chairs also play a role in the archetype of judgment and decision. Think of the judge's bench, or the interview chair, or the seat you take across from someone who will determine your future. These are not neutral spaces. They are charged with meaning. The moment you sit, your body feels the weight of expectation. Your posture shifts, your breathing changes. The unconscious knows that you are in a space of evaluation, and it responds with all the memories of being judged, from childhood classrooms to parental scrutiny. To become aware of this is to reclaim your power. You realize that the chair does not define you, you define how you sit in it. The next time you find yourself in such a situation, try this. Instead of shrinking into the seat or stiffening with fear, take a breath and feel the chair beneath you. Imagine it as an ally, a grounding presence that supports you, not a platform for judgment. Feel your spine align, your feet on the ground, your breath steady. In that moment, you are no longer a passive occupant of a chair. You are a sovereign being, choosing how you meet the moment. This simple shift can change everything, not just in your body, but in your psyche. We have spoken much about chairs as symbols, but remember this: their true power lies in the way they invite you to inhabit yourself fully. When you sit with awareness, you are no longer a fragment of yourself. You are whole, grounded, present. You become, for that moment, the archetypal, one who sits the sage, the listener, the dreamer, the sovereign of your own inner kingdom. This is why the unconscious pays attention to where and how you sit. It knows that these moments of stillness are opportunities for you to meet yourself. To truly sit, to consciously take your place in a chair, is an act of claiming existence. You might not think of it that way because you have sat countless times without giving it a thought. But every moment you settle into a seat, there is a quiet declaration: I am here, and I belong in this moment. The unconscious recognizes this declaration far more than you do. It is why a chair can feel either like an ally or a stranger, depending on how aligned you are with yourself. When you sit in a chair that resonates with your being, there is a natural ease, a sense that the world has made room for you. When you sit in one that feels wrong, there is tension, as though your body knows you are in a space that does not reflect your inner truth. Your chair can teach you about grounding. To feel the weight of your body supported is to be reminded that you do not always have to carry everything alone. Many people live as though they are perpetually standing alert, defensive, ready for the next demand. But when you sit, there is an opportunity to let the world hold you, to release the invisible armor you have been wearing. Yet, so few allow themselves this surrender even while seated. They remain rigid, their muscles tight, their breath shallow. The chair becomes a battlefield instead of a sanctuary. This is not the fault of the chair. It is a reflection of how hard it is for them to rest. to trust, to simply be. Think of the archetype of the elder. In every culture, the elder is seated. They do not need to pace or shout. Their stillness itself is the source of their authority. The chair becomes the axis upon which their wisdom rests. When you sit in stillness, you can begin to touch the same energy, not as an imitation, but as an awakening of the elder within you. There is a dignity in sitting fully with both feet on the ground, spine aligned, gaze steady. In such moments, you are not just occupying a seat, you are inhabiting your own life. You are saying, I will not flee from myself. I will sit here and I will meet whatever arises. A chair can be a place of revelation. Have you ever sat down after a long day only to feel emotions well up unexpectedly? You think you are simply resting, but the moment your body stops, the truths you have been avoiding rise to the surface. The chair, in holding your weight, also hold your silence, your grief, your unspoken words. It becomes a container, not just for your body, but for your soul. This is why people often cry when they finally allow themselves to sit after a period of struggle. It is as if the chair is saying, now, at last, you can feel. The type of chair you choose in these moments matters. A sturdy, grounded chair can make you feel safe enough to release what you've been holding. A fragile or uncomfortable seat might make you restless, unable to sink into yourself. This is not about luxury, but about alignment. The unconscious recognizes when a chair fits you, not just physically, but energetically. When you sit in the right chair, there is a sense of coming home, of settling not only into space, but into yourself. I recall a woman who had a chair by a window in her house, a simple wooden seat with no cushions. She said she sat there every morning to drink her tea, and that somehow the world looked clearer from that vantage point. When I asked why she chose that chair instead of the softer ones in her living room, she said, "This one makes me feel awake. It doesn't let me disappear into comfort. It keeps me present." That chair, plain as it was, had become her altar, a place where she met the day with awareness, where she listened to her own thoughts before the noise of the world could drown them out. There is a deep connection between chairs and identity. In many homes, there is the father's chair, the mother's chair, the guest's chair. These designations are not simply practical, they are symbolic. When a child sits in the father's chair, they often feel an odd mix of pride and unease, as if they have stepped into a role that is both familiar and not yet theirs. This is the archetype speaking. The chair carries the energy of the one who usually occupies it, and to sit there is to momentarily embody that energy. This can be a powerful experience if done consciously, as a way of exploring the parts of yourself you have not yet claimed. The unconscious also remembers the chairs of your past. Perhaps there was a chair at your grandparents' table where you always felt safe, or a school desk where you felt trapped, or a seat on a bus where you stared out the window and dreamed of escape. These memories shape how you respond to chairs today, though you may not be aware of it. If you find yourself avoiding certain types of seats too hard, too open, too formal. Ask yourself what memory is being stirred. The chair may be reminding you of a time when you felt powerless or overly exposed or confined. To sit in such a chair now with awareness can be an act of healing, a way of rewriting the story. There is also an archetypal loneliness in the image of a single chair in an empty room. It calls to something deep in us, the awareness of our own solitude, our own singular journey. Yet that loneliness is not always a curse. To sit alone in such a chair can be a profound meditation, a moment of communion with yourself. It is in these moments that the unconscious often speaks most clearly, because there is no one else to distract you, no external narrative to drown out the voice within. But solitude can also feel heavy if it is not chosen. An empty chair beside you can remind you of absence, someone you wish were there, a connection that has been lost. The unconscious turns that empty seat into a symbol of longing. This is why we sometimes feel a pang of sadness when we see an empty chair at a table. It is not just the lack of a person, it is the echo of all the times that seat was filled with laughter, conversation, life. The challenge then is to learn how to sit with both presence and absence. To sit in your own chair fully, even when other chairs remain empty. To honor the stories those empty chairs hold, without letting them pull you away from the moment you are living. This is not easy, but it is a path of consciousness to be fully where you are. Even as you acknowledge what is not there, your choice of chair, in this sense, is a daily ritual of self-expression. It says, this is how I want to be today. This is the posture of my soul right now. If you pay attention, you might find that your preferences shift depending on your inner state. On days of strength, you may choose the seat that feels bold, central, commanding. On days of introspection, you may seek the quiet corner, the chair that holds you gently. These shifts are not random, they are the dance of your archetypes, each taking its turn at the forefront of your life. Every chair you have ever chosen, every seat you have claimed or avoided, tells the story of who you were in that moment. It tells of your fears, your desire, your longing for connection or solitude. It reveals whether you sought to be seen or preferred to remain unseen, whether you were prepared to step into your own authority or content to sit quietly in the margins. A chair, though silent and inanimate, has the power to hold the weight of your identity, your story, your shadow. And if you listen carefully, you may find that it speaks not in words, but in the subtle impressions it leaves on your soul. When you walk into a room full of chairs, your choice is often immediate, instinctual. You do not think, you feel. You sense which chair calls to you. This is the unconscious at work, guiding you toward the place that resonates with your current inner state. But this instinct is not always aligned with growth. Often we choose chairs that keep us in our comfort zone, that reinforce our familiar patterns. We choose the seat by the wall because we do not want to be exposed. We choose the same spot every time because it feels safe. Yet, transformation rarely happens in safety. Sometimes the chair you most resist is the one that will teach you the most. The one that will ask you to sit with your discomfort until it becomes clarity. Imagine walking into a circle of chairs and deliberately choosing the one that feels least comfortable, the one in the brightest light, or closest to the center. How does your body respond? Do you feel restless, anxious, too visible? That feeling is not about the chair. It is about the parts of you that are unaccustomed to being seen. By sitting there, you are not just changing your physical position. You are stepping into a new narrative, challenging the limits of your self-image. The unconscious notices this act of courage. It whispers, yes, you can hold this space. You can grow into this seat. Chairs are also tied to memory in ways that are almost haunting. Think of the chair where someone once waited anxiously for news. The seat where an elder sat to tell stories that shaped your childhood. The place at the table that is now empty because someone you love is gone. These chairs are not just furniture, they are vessels of time. When you sit in them, you feel the presence of what once was. It is as though the chair remembers, and through that memory, you are invited to remember as well. Sometimes this remembering is sweet, other times painful, but always it is a call to reconnect with the deeper layers of your own story. There is also the archetype of the throne, which lives within every chair, no matter how simple. The throne is the symbol of sovereignty, of authority, of mastery over one's life. But few dare to sit fully in their inner throne. They are afraid of what it means to claim their power, to take responsibility for their own destiny. And so they choose smaller chairs, humbles légères, places where they can remain unseen. There is nothing wrong with humility, but when it becomes a mask for fear, it holds you back. The day you choose the throne, whatever that may look like in your life, is the day you declare that you are ready to be the ruler of your own inner kingdom. It is not about dominating others. It is about mastering yourself. Consider how the simple act of offering someone a chair is a gesture of respect. Please, have a seat. We say, as though inviting them into our personal realm. To give someone a seat is to acknowledge their presence, to say, I see you, I make space for you. In ancient times, to be given a seat in the hall of a ruler was an honor, a sign that you belonged in the inner circle. Even now, when you offer someone your chair, you are extending a part of your own space, your own energy. The unconscious recognizes the sacredness of this gesture, even if the conscious mind does not. There is something profoundly symbolic in the way chairs gather us together. A table surrounded by chairs is not just a place to eat, it is a place where stories are shared, where bonds are strengthened, where decisions are made. The way chairs are arranged can either invite connection or create distance. A circle of chairs creates equality, a sense that all voices are welcome. Rows of chairs facing a single point create focus and hierarchy. These arrangements shape our interactions, subtly influencing how we speak, how we listen, how we relate to one another. When you look at a room full of chairs, ask yourself, what story is this arrangement telling? Even in solitude, your chair speaks to you. There is a reason we all have a favorite chair, a seat where we feel most at home. That chair becomes an extension of us, molded to our shape, holding the energy of our thoughts, our moods, our dreams. When you sit there, it is as though you are returning to a part of yourself that the rest of the world cannot touch. But this intimacy also means that the chair becomes a mirror of your habits. If you always sit slouched, lost in distraction, the chair becomes a place of disconnection. If you sit with presence, with intention, the chair becomes a place of awakening. It is not the chair itself, but the consciousness you bring to it that determines what it will hold for you. There is a quiet power in changing where you sit. Something as simple as moving to a different chair can shift your perspective, open new pathways of thought. Have you ever noticed how a conversation changes when you sit in a different spot at the table? Or how your mood shifts when you choose a seat by the window instead of in the corner? The unconscious is sensitive to these changes. It knows that every position carries its own energy, its own archetypal resonance. By choosing a new seat, you are inviting a new version of yourself to emerge. And yet, there is also wisdom in having a chair that is yours, a place where you return again and again, where your body knows it can rest. This balance between the familiar and the unfamiliar, between the known seat and the unknown one, is part of the dance of life. Too much familiarity and you stagnate. Too much change and you lose your center. The work is to find the middle path, to sit where you feel both rooted and alive, safe yet awake. The next time you sit, I invite you to pause and ask yourself, what is this chair saying to me? What part of me is sitting here? Am I fully present or am I simply filling space? If you listen deeply, you may find that the chair has been speaking all along, asking you to notice not just where you are, but who you are. As you take your seat, every time you sit, you make an unspoken agreement with the world. I will stay here for a moment. I will not run. I will meet whatever is present. Yet few of us truly sit. We sit with our bodies, but our minds race. Our spirit drifter. We perch on the edge of our own lives, as though afraid to fully inhabit the moment. Our chair, if you let it, can become a teacher in this. It reminds you of the power of stillness, of how much strength there is in simply being. The challenge is not in finding the right chair, but in learning to sit without fleeing into distractions. The way you choose and inhabit a chair reveals your relationship to power and vulnerability. Some people select a seat that allows them to oversee the room, to feel in control. Others choose seats that shield them, that let them fade into the background. These instincts are not random. They come from deep places within the psyche, from past experiences, from the roles we have unconsciously learned to play. To become aware of this is to begin to loosen its hold. What would happen if, just once, you chose the seat? You never choose the one that feels too exposed, too bold, too central. You might discover a part of yourself that has been waiting for you to step forward. There is also a spiritual aspect to how we sit. In meditation, posture is everything. You are taught to sit with a straight spine, not out of rigidity, but because this alignment allows energy to flow freely, connecting the body to the mind and the spirit. When you sit slouched or collapsed, your energy becomes tangled. Your mind drifts, But when you sit with presence, even for a few moments, you become a channel grounded below, open above, centered within. Every chair can be a meditation seat if you bring this awareness to it. It is not the cushion or the design that matters, but your willingness to inhabit the moment fully. I have often watched people in waiting rooms. There is a unique tension in those spaces where everyone is seated, but few are truly at ease. Some fidget endlessly, their legs bouncing, their hands tapping. Others sink inward, eyes glazed, lost in worry or anticipation. The chairs in such places seem to hold collective anxiety, as if they have absorbed the countless hours of waiting, the unspoken fears and hopes of those who sat there before. When you sit in a waiting room, you are not just with yourself, you are with the echoes of all who have waited, all who have wondered what was coming next. That energy is palpable if you allow yourself to feel it. Chairs are also tied to thresholds. We sit at thresholds when we are about to cross into something new. A job interview, a difficult conversation, a moment of decision. In these moments, the chair becomes both a resting place and a challenge. It holds you still while your inner world shifts. Have you noticed how your body behaves in such chairs? Do you sit tall, breathing deeply, ready to meet what comes? Or do you shrink as if hoping to disappear? The unconscious notices, it records how you meet these moments. And each time you choose presence over avoidance, you strengthen your inner throne. The throne is not a literal seat, it is a state of being. It is the posture of someone who knows they belong, who does not need external validation to claim their space. When you sit in your inner throne, every chair you choose becomes a reflection of that dignity. You no longer worry about whether the seat is comfortable or impressive, because you know the true seat of power is within you. The chair becomes secondary, a mere vessel for your presence, but many fear their throne. They choose smaller seats, both literally and metaphorically, because they are afraid of the responsibility that comes with being fully themselves. They avoid positions of leadership or visibility, preferring to remain in the shadows. This fear is understandable. The throne demands authenticity. It demands that you meet life without the masks you have carefully constructed. Yet, until you sit in that place, you will always feel a quiet longing, a sense that something in you remains unclaimed. I remember a man who spent years sitting at the edge of his own family table, leaving the main seat empty, even though he was the one holding everything together. He said it felt wrong to sit there, as if he did not deserve it. But when he finally took that seat hesitant, trembling, he felt a shift, not just in himself, but in everyone around him. I didn't realize how much space I had been refusing to take. He said, the chair was just a symbol, but it was also a threshold. By sitting there, he was stepping into a role that had been waiting for him all along. A chair can be a place of healing. When you allow yourself to sit and truly feel without rushing, without distraction, you give your psyche space to breathe. This is why therapy rooms always have chairs that invite stillness. Chairs designed not just for comfort, but for presence. In such a chair, you can face your own shadows, your own untold stories. and begin the slow, patient work of integrating them. The chair becomes a container for this process, holding you as you hold yourself. Think also of the chairs we keep, but never use the elegant dining chair that is only for guests, the rocking chair that sits by the window but remains empty. These unused chairs are like unopened doors within us. They represent parts of life we have not yet lived, conversations we have not had, dreams we have not pursued. What would happen if you sat in those chairs, even for a few moments? You might find that they awaken something forgotten in you, some longing that has been waiting for your attention. The unconscious speaks through symbols, and the chair is one of its simplest yet most profound symbols. To sit is to claim your place in the world. To choose where and how you sit is to declare, this is who I am right now. And to change your seat is to change your perspective, to shift your inner narrative. This is why I encourage you to experiment with your chairs. Move them, sit in different places. Notice how your energy changes. These small actions, though seemingly insignificant, are a way of dialoguing with the deeper layers of your psyche. When you sit down, you are creating a meeting point between the outer and inner worlds. Your body rests in the physical structure of the chair, but your mind and soul settle into a posture that reflects far more than comfort. There is a symbolic weight to every choice, a silent dialogue that begins the moment you lower yourself into a seat. You may not speak it, but the unconscious does. This is where I choose to belong. For now, this is how I meet this moment. And the chair, in its silence, listens. Chairs teach us about presence. Too often, we sit without being present at all. Our bodies may be still, but our thoughts are scattered, racing into the past or the future. To sit consciously is to anchor yourself, to feel the weight of your own being, to recognize that for this moment you do not need to run or strive. Even the simplest chair, if approached with awareness, becomes an altar of stillness. But if you sit unconsciously, even the most luxurious chair cannot give you true rest. Rest is not in the seat, it is in the mind's surrender, in the soul's willingness to inhabit the present. I have seen people who live their lives like restless guests in their own homes, never fully sitting, never fully arriving. They move from task to task, conversation to conversation, but never pause to feel the ground beneath them. This restlessness is not just physical, it is spiritual. It comes from an unwillingness to face oneself, to meet the silence that arises when motion stops. Chairs have the power to confront this. They say, sit, be with yourself, feel, and this simple act can be terrifying because it strips away distractions and forces you to meet the truths you have avoided. Consider how every significant conversation in your life has likely involved chairs. A confession across a table, a life-changing decision made in an office, a tender moment shared on a bench in the park. The chair becomes the silent witness to these events, holding their energy long after the words have faded. If you return to the same seat years later, you might feel those echoes, the joy, the grief, the intensity of what was once said or left unsaid. This is the archetypal memory of objects. or the way they absorb and hold psychic weight of our lives. There is a difference between sitting on a chair and sitting into a chair. When you sit on a chair, you remain tense, half hovering, as though ready to leap up at any moment. When you sit into a chair, you allow yourself to be fully supported, to trust the seat beneath you. This distinction mirrors how we live. Are you always ready to flee? Never truly resting? Or can you allow yourself to settle, to feel the ground beneath your life? A chair can reveal this to you if you pay attention. Your favorite chair often holds clues to your deepest needs. Perhaps you are drawn to a soft, enveloping armchair because you crave nurturing, the feeling of being held. Perhaps you prefer a firm, upright chair because you seek clarity and structure, a reminder to stay awake and focused. Or perhaps you choose a window seat because a part of you is always looking outward, longing for new horizons. These choices are not accidents. They are conversations between your inner world and the outer objects that reflect it. In family life, chairs often take on identities of their own. The father's chair, the mother's chair, the child's seat. These become roles, unspoken assignments that shape the dynamics of the household. A child who dares to sit in the father's chair may feel a thrill of power, but also the weight of a role they are not ready to carry. In this way, the chair becomes more than furniture. It becomes a symbolic place of initiation, of stepping into or out of archetypal energies. If you pay attention, you will notice how each person gravitates to their chair, and how the energy of the room changes when they switch seats. Chairs also teach us about transitions. We sit when we are waiting, when we are about to begin, when we are reflecting after something ends. There is a chair for every threshold in life. The hospital chair, where someone waits for news of a loved one. The office chair, where someone receives a promotion or a dismissal. The wooden chair in a quiet corner, where someone sits with a cup of tea, contemplating the day. Each chair marks a moment of change, of pause, of something that matters. There is a sacredness to the empty chair. It speaks of absence, but also of potential. An empty chair can be a symbol of mourning, a reminder of someone who once sat there, but no longer does. Yet, it can also be an invitation, waiting for someone new, or for a part of yourself you have not yet welcomed. In this way, an empty chair is never truly empty. It is filled with memory, with hope, with possibility. Sometimes, the chairs in your home can tell you things you have not yet admitted to yourself. A chair you never sit in may represent a part of your life you are neglecting. A chair that feels uncomfortable no matter how you adjust might be a reflection of the roles you force yourself into that do not fit your soul. When you become conscious of these patterns, you begin to understand that your environment is a mirror of your psyche. To rearrange your chairs, to choose differently, is to create small shifts in your inner world. I have always believed that sitting can be an act of courage. It is easy to keep moving, to avoid stillness. But to sit, to truly sit, is to face yourself, to confront the silence, to allow what has been buried to rise, This is why so many spiritual practices begin with sitting, meditation, prayer, contemplation. All require the simple, profound act of being still. The chair, in these moments, becomes more than an object. It becomes a vessel holding you while you hold the weight of your own soul. Think of all the chairs in the world, lined up in homes, offices, churches, parks, and classrooms. Each one has its own story, its own silent archive of the people who have sat there. If you could hear them speak, what would they say? They would tell of laughter and tears, of conversations that changed lives, of moments of solitude and reflection. They would tell of all the times someone sat down weary or hopeful and found themselves changed by the act of pausing. The next time you choose a chair, do not do so thoughtlessly. Feel its presence. Notice how it shapes your posture, your breath, your thoughts. Ask yourself, why this chair right now? What is it offering me? What is it asking of me? This is not a trivial exercise. It is a way of becoming conscious of the symbols that guide your life. And when you sit with awareness, you may discover that the chair, in its simplicity, has been waiting to teach you all along. Every chair you encounter is like a silent witness to the archetypal drama unfolding in your life. It may seem absurd to place such weight on something so ordinary, but that is precisely the blindness of modern consciousness. We believe meaning only lives in grand events. Yet the unconscious speaks most powerfully through the ordinary, through the everyday objects that become symbols without our consent. The chair is one of these symbols. It is where the body comes to rest, where the mind ceases its frantic pacing, where the soul, if only for a brief moment, can step out of the relentless currents of time and simply be. When you choose a chair, you are not simply choosing a seat, you are choosing how you will meet yourself in that moment. What part of your being will emerge, and which archetype will claim you as its throne? It is no accident that thrones have always held a central place in the myths of kings and gods. A throne is not merely a place to sit, it is a declaration of sovereignty, of the ruler's alignment with a greater cosmic order. Even now, when you sit in a chair that feels solid, supportive, dignified, a trace of that ancient archetype stirs within you. Your spine straightens, your breath slows, and you sense a kind of authority rising not over others, but over yourself. Conversely, when you choose a chair that collapses beneath you, or one that forces you into a posture of discomfort, the message is different. It whispers of instability, of surrendering your presence, of being lost in the folds of your own unconscious patterns. I want you to imagine for a moment that you are walking through a room filled with chairs of all kinds. There are grand, high-backed seats that command attention. There are low, humble stools that blend into the background. There are soft, enveloping armchairs that almost seem to breathe with warmth, inviting you to disappear into them. And as you pass each one, you feel something shift inside you. One chair makes you feel powerful, another makes you feel small, another reminds you of home, another feels strange and alien. This is not random. These chairs are mirrors, each reflecting a different part of your inner world. Which one do you choose? And why? In my work, I have often observed how people gravitate toward particular chairs in a group setting. There's always that person who chooses the corner seat, seeking distance and the safety of invisibility. There is the one who claims the central chair, unconsciously declaring a need to be at the heart of the circle. There are those who hover, unsure where to sit, revealing their inner indecision. Their fear of taking a place that feels too exposed or too hidden. These choices are never just about comfort. They are about archetypal positions, about how we arrange ourselves in relation to the collective, to authority, to our own sense of belonging. A man once told me of a recurring dream. In it, he would enter a hall filled with chairs, but each time he tried to sit, the chair would vanish, or crumble, or move away from him. He awoke from these dreams with a sense of frustration and longing. When we explored the dream together, it became clear that the chairs were not just objects, they were symbols of his inability to find his place in life. He felt as though every time he tried to settle, to rest, something within him sabotaged the effort. He realized eventually that the disappearing chairs were the reflection of his own fear of truly stopping, of facing himself. The moment he consciously allowed himself to rest, not just physically, but emotionally, the dream stopped. The chairs no longer vanished because he had finally created an inner seat for himself. Chairs also reveal the relationship we have with our own shadows. Some people choose chairs that are deliberately uncomfortable, as though they do not believe they deserve ease. They sit in ways that make them smaller, shrinking into the fabric as if apologizing for existing. Others choose seats that are ostentatiously large or imposing, overcompensating for an inner sense of inadequacy. These are unconscious patterns, but they are powerful. They shape how we interact with the world and how the world perceives us. To bring these patterns into awareness is to begin the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, rather than who your conditioning has made you. The unconscious often speaks through dreams of chairs and seats. I have heard dreams of empty chairs on a stage, of being asked to take a seat among strangers, of finding oneself in the wrong chair and feeling out of place. These dreams are not trivial. They are explorations of identity, of belonging, of the roles we play and the roles we avoid. An empty chair in a dream may be an invitation. There is a place for you here, but will you claim it? A broken chair may symbolize a belief that you are unsupported, that the structures of your life are unstable, and to sit in a chair that feels wrong is often the psyche's way of showing you that you are living in a role that is not truly yours. I ask you now to think of your own life. Which chairs do you return to day after day? Which ones do you avoid? Do you have a favorite seat at home? One that feels like it knows you, that holds your shape? What does that chair represent to you? Is it a place of retreat where you escape from the world? Or is it a place of reflection where you meet yourself honestly? And what about the chairs you never touch? The ones that sit unused in corners or along walls. These chairs are not just empty, they are symbolic spaces representing aspects of your life you have not yet inhabited. I once visited a house where there was a beautiful chair, perfectly positioned by a window that overlooked a garden. It was the most inviting spot in the room. Yet no one sat there. When I asked the owner why, she said, "Oh, that's just for show." But as we spoke, it became clear that this unused chair represented something deeper, a dream of stillness, of beauty, of taking time to simply watch the world. She never sat there because she felt guilty about resting, about indulging in a moment of quiet. That chair had become the symbol of a life she longed for, but could not allow herself to have. When she finally sat there, even for a few minutes, tears came. She realized she had been denying herself something as simple and as profound as the right to be still. The chairs of our lives hold these silent stories. They remember, they carry the imprint of who we have been, of the conversations we have had, of the emotions we have felt, and they call us in their quiet way to pay attention. The chair you choose today is not random. It is the seat of your present self, the place where you meet the version of you that is alive in this moment. If you wish to know yourself better, watch where you sit. Watch how you sit. These small acts are the threads that weave the fabric of your soul. As I continue to speak to you, I want you to understand that the chair is not simply an object beneath you, but a symbol of how you anchor your presence in the world. When you sit, you reveal your relationship with life itself. Do you sit lightly, as if you are only half in this moment, ready to flee at the first sign of discomfort? Or do you sit fully, as though you have arrived, as though you are willing to be seen, to be still, to be alive here and now? The way you inhabit a chair tells more about you than words ever could. It tells whether you live in the past or future, or if you have the courage to dwell entirely in the present. Imagine a room filled with chairs, each one radiating its own energy. One is soft and low, pulling you inward, inviting you into memory and dream. Another is high-backed and firm, demanding presence, making you feel the weight of your spine, the axis of your being. Another is plain, almost invisible, as if it wishes to disappear along with you. Which chair do you choose? That choice is your unconscious speaking. It is telling you where you are, what you need, and perhaps even what you fear. If you always choose the same chair, it may be time to ask why. What does that chair give you? What does it keep you from feeling? I remember a man who once told me he could not bear to sit in a recliner. It feels too indulgent. He said, too comfortable. We explored this aversion together, and he discovered that deep within, he carried a belief that comfort was dangerous, that to relax was to lower his guard, to make himself vulnerable, to attack. This belief had come from childhood, from a home where safety was never guaranteed. By choosing only rigid, upright chair, he was unconsciously keeping himself in a posture of defense, always ready for the next blow. When he finally allowed himself to sit in the recliner, really sink into it, he trembled. I feel like I might fall apart. He whispered, and in that moment, he understood that the chair was not a threat, it was his own unprocessed pain, his own shadow, waiting to be felt. The unconscious is always looking for ways to speak, and chairs are one of its simplest metaphors. They are thrones, altars, witnesses. They hold the weight of the body, but also the invisible weight of the soul. When you sit, you are not only resting your legs, you are taking a position in life. You are saying, this is my place. For now, this is where I meet the world. The tragedy is that most people do this without awareness, as though life were a series of meaningless moments. But nothing is meaningless to the unconscious. Even a chair is a symbol. And when you start to see it as such, you begin to see that all of life is speaking to you all the time. There is also a collective archetype of the chair. Think of the empty chairs in a theater before a performance. Each one waits silently for someone to take their place, for the collective energy of the audience to fill the room. The chairs are not alive in the way we are alive, but they hold a kind of potential readiness. When the people arrive, when they sit, something happens. The room changes, the air becomes charged with expectation, with the collective psyche of those gathered. It is the same in a circle of friends, or a family meal, or a council meeting. The chairs are not passive. They shape the gathering as much as the people do. The way they are arranged determines how energy flows, who speaks, who listens, who holds authority. In many cultures, the act of offering someone a chair is an act of honor. It says, I see you, I welcome you. There is space for you here. To refuse someone a chair is to deny their presence, to say, you do not belong. This is why we feel a strange discomfort when we enter a room and all the chairs are taken. It is not just inconvenience, it is a subtle message from the collective unconscious. There is no place for you here. Conversely, when someone offers you a chair, especially their own, it is as if they are sharing a part of themselves, their territory, their identity. I have also seen the shadow of the chair. There are people who cling to their seats, who refuse to move, who hold on to a particular place as if it defines them. They are afraid that if they leave that chair, they will lose their sense of self. But life is not meant to be lived in one seat forever. The soul demands movement. It demands that you rise from time to time, that you choose new places, new perspectives, new roles. Otherwise, the chair becomes a prison, and your spirit withers in its confinement. Have you noticed how different you feel when you sit outside, on a bench, or even on the ground, compared to sitting inside? The earth itself is the original chair, the primal seat of our ancestors. When you sit on the ground, something ancient awakens. You feel the pull of gravity, not just as a physical force, but as a reminder of your belonging to the earth, of your connection to all life. Modern chairs, with their designs and structures often disconnect us from this primal sense of being held by the world. And yet, if you bring awareness to it, even a simple wooden chair can become an extension of the earth, a place where you can feel rooted and alive. Your chair choices reveal not just your personal archetypes, but also the collective stories you carry. A grand, luxurious chair might represent the desire for status, recognition, control, the archetype of the king or queen. A minimal, unadorned stool might represent simplicity, humility, or even asceticism, the archetype of the monk or sage. Neither is right or wrong. Both are necessary aspects of the psyche. The key is to become conscious of which one you are inhabiting and why. As I speak, I want you to reflect on your own inner seat, the one you carry within you wherever you go. This inner seat is not made of wood or fabric. It is made of presence, of self-awareness, of the willingness to sit in your own being without apology. When you cultivate this inner chair, you can sit anywhere in a crowded room, in an humble café, on a stone by the river, and feel at home. You are not defined by the external seat because you have found your own. And yet, there is great value in exploring the chairs around you, noticing how they influence your state of mind. A chair with a view of the door might make you feel safe and watchful. A chair by the window might invite you to dream. A chair in the center of the room might challenge you to be seen, to take up space, to claim your place in the collective. Pay attention to these invitations. Let them teach you about the parts of yourself that are awake and the parts that are sleeping. I once worked with a woman who always chose the smallest chair in every room, as though she were afraid to take up space. She said it felt wrong to sit in larger, more comfortable chairs. As we explored this, it became clear that she had internalized a belief that she did not deserve ease or visibility. Her life mirrored this. She was always giving, always shrinking, never allowing herself the fullness of her own presence. One day, I asked her to sit in the largest chair in my office, the one that faced the center of the room. She resisted, but eventually she did. She sat stiffly at first, but then she began to relax, and tears came. I feel like I'm finally allowed to exist. She said, that moment marked the beginning of a transformation. The chair had become a tool of awakening. The unconscious does not separate the sacred from the ordinary. Toita, a chair can be as symbolic as a mountain or a temple. It all depends on how you approach it. If you sit without awareness, you miss the chance to see what the moment is offering you. But if you sit with presence, with a willingness to listen, the chair becomes a gateway. It leads you into yourself, into the archetypes and shadows and dreams that shape your life. There comes a moment, if you are attentive, when you no longer see the chair as an object separate from yourself, but as an extension of your inner world. The wood or the fabric, the contours that meet your body, they are all responding to who you are right now. Not in form alone, but in feeling. When you sit in silence and truly listen not to the world outside, but to the subtle rhythm within, you begin to sense that the chair is more than passive. It is receptive. It meets you as you meet yourself. In this stillness, you may notice the first stirrings of truth rising from the depths. The chair becomes a vessel, and you, a seeker resting upon the edge of revelation. Your unconscious, long ignored in the rush of modern life, leans forward. It does not speak in words, but in sensations, in sudden clarity, in breath that deepens without cause. Here you sit, not merely to rest, but to remember who you were before you were told what seat you were allowed to take. To remember the voice that chose your place at the table of life, not from fear, not from compromise, but from a knowing rooted in the soul. This is why the chair is sacred, because it holds space not just for your body, but for the return of your true self. It marks the transition from doing to being. It says, without sound, you may stop now, you may listen, you may feel, and in that permission, long withheld, there is grace. The archetypal throne lives in each of us, not as a symbol of dominance, but of inner sovereignty. To sit on your inner throne is to be unshaken by the projections of others. It is to know that you do not need to perform, to chase, or to flee. You only need to sit in yourself fully, unflinchingly. The world may swirl around you, but the axis remains still. But such a throne cannot be claimed by force. It is only found when you have dared to sit in all the other chairs first, the uncomfortable chairs of shame, the low, forgotten chairs of invisibility, the cold chairs of rejection, the anxious chairs of waiting, the lonely chairs no one else wanted. You must sit in them all and feel what they carry, and let each one teach you its truth. Only then does the throne appear not in splendor, but in quiet readiness. It is always there, waiting. It is not the seat that changes, it is you. I remember the dream of a woman who saw a long corridor filled with chairs. Each one she passed whispered to her in silence, "This is who you were." She sat in some briefly, feeling echoes of her former selves, fearful, hopeful, angry, closed. When she reached the final chair, it was made of light. There were no arms, no back, no visible structure, just light. And when she sat in it, she said she didn't feel like herself anymore. She felt like the entire sky. What do you think such a dream means? It means that at the end of all roles, all masks, all personas, there is a chair beyond form, beyond identity, a return to the self, whole and indivisible. You must understand that your unconscious has been arranging chairs around you your entire life, in your friendships, in your partnerships, in your family. Each person assigned a seat, each role unconsciously rehearsed. You sat where you were taught to sit. You learned when to speak and when to stay silent, when to claim your place and when to relinquish it. But now, in this moment of awareness, you are free to choose again. Not out of rebellion, but out of alignment. You may rise, you may move, you may find a new seat that was made not by others, but by the truth that lives within. Their chairs you have outgrown, you feel them now too small, too cared, too safe. You shrink when you sit in them. You feel the ache of unspoken dreams pressing against the edges. You tell yourself they are fine, but they are not. Your soul is stirring. It wants more space. It wants to stretch, to speak, to stand, and there are chairs you have not yet dared to sit in, the ones that ask you to be seen, the ones that place you in the light, the ones that invite you to be responsible for your voice, your impact, your becoming. These chairs may terrify you, but they are yours. They are not rewards for perfection. They are invitations to presence. You do not have to earn them. You only have to be willing to sit. And finally, there is the invisible chair, the one you carry with you when no seat is available. When the world offers no space, nor welcome, nor belonging, this chair is your inner root. It is the truth that you belong wherever you are, because your presence is your place. You carry it into rooms where no one sees you. You unfold it in conversations where your voice trembles. You sit in it when you are tired of trying. And you remember, I do not need to be given a chair. I am the chair. I am the presence that creates the space. So, when you leave this place, when you rise and return to the world outside this hall, I ask you not to forget this truth. You will sit 1,000 times more in your life, in offices, in buses, at dinner tables, on hospital beds, on porches as the sun goes down. Every chair will be an opportunity to remember, to ask, who am I in this seat? Who am I allowing myself to be? What is rising in me now? If you forget, return to your breath. Feel the way your body meets the chair. Let your spine rise like a tree. Let your weight sink like roots. Let your awareness return to the center. There, in that quiet contact between body and chair, is the whole universe. There is nothing more sacred than the place where you meet yourself. And so I leave you with this. May you choose your chair, not by habit, but by soul. May you sit not to disappear, but to arrive. May you stop not to escape, but to feel. And may every chair you sit in, no matter how humble, how grand, how familiar or new, become the throne of your truth, of the temple of your presence, and the seat of your becoming, because your choice of chair is no accident. It reveals who you are, and who you are becoming now. Sit fully